the air pollution level in India's capital, Delhi, has reached its worst level in 3 years. The authorities there have asked people to stay indoors to minimize the health impact of the smog, and have also closed many schools until Tuesday, if not all schools. Dozens of flights have been cancelled, and an air purifier has been deployed at the Taj Mahal in the city of Agra. Later today, India's Supreme Court will hear a petition calling on states to take tougher action against stubble burning on farms, one of the main causes of the pollution. These Delhi residents described how people in the city are struggling to cope.
You can obviously see how terrible it is, and it's actually scary. You can't see things in front of you.
Patients are coming with more like lung respiratory diseases, like morely affected with asthma.
Instead of using own vehicles, cars, or even cabs, we should go and use public transport like trains and all.
It is very bad for our generation, upcoming generation. They will have to pay for it.
Well, Up All Night's Rani Singh is now back from Delhi, and I asked her what it's like living in the city with the high levels of smog.
Whenever I go in and out of Delhi, you can literally feel it catching at your throat, as if, you know how it is if in Britain or America you're here on a bad day, and it's cold, or you're catching a cold. It feels like that, and my sons, they and I were there recently because I fly in and out for work, and they said to me, Dotun, that nowhere in Delhi feels clean, even in air-conditioned shopping malls, and they actually complained that they couldn't breathe properly, and that they were really relieved to leave the area and head off into the hills that time, which is where we were going.
How do people who can't escape to the hills, how do they cope?
They just live with it. Honestly, they just live with it. But and you sort of get used to it. I mean, of course, it does fluctuate, but it's really this time of the year, it feels worse than any other time of the year. People have said that it feels as though it's the equivalent, as if, every citizen in Delhi was smoking 33 cigarettes a day. And there have been lots of protests because of how it feels, but clearly not enough. And so the authorities have had to close schools right till Tuesday, from Friday right till Tuesday, November the 5th. And so the authorities have had to distribute 5 million masks for the smog for school children. Delhi has a population of roughly 20 million and has declared a public health emergency. And for the authorities there to declare it as a public health emergency in what was already a really, really badly polluted city.
Well, yes.
Things have gone to a terrible level. There's something called the Air Quality Index, and this measures air pollution and the particles in the air. And there's a name of a particle, and this is the really deadly dangerous one. It exists everywhere. It exists in London, Manchester. It's called PM2.5. And this one, if there's enough of them in the air, this particle, this is what gets into your lungs, your heart, causes asthma attacks, and can cause cancer. Now, in London, for instance, the air quality index is around under 100 generally. In Sydney, it's around 80. In New York, roughly, and of course these do fluctuate, this is an average, it's 30. And in Beijing, which used to be called the most polluted city in the world, it's now around 117. And the measure is micrograms per cubic meter. Now, what's considered severe is 400 to 500. Delhi recently is measuring 500, so that's more than severe. And in parts of northern India, the Indian forecast agency, SAFAR, has measured over 900. That's as dangerous
amazing.
as, and
Of
deadly as
course.
anything.
Well, what is causing it? Because once you've said it's always been a highly polluted area, and why is it getting worse?
Well, it's mainly to do with the time of year and what's going on in northern India. Now, there are 2 million farmers around the area, northern India. The capital, Delhi, which is the city we're talking about mainly, is in the north of India. And at this time of year, the farmers around the capital are burning 23 million tons of crop residue. And just to give you a bit of background, in the 60s and 70s, Dotton, there was big famine, and that led to a green revolution, and that led to a huge kind of technological revolution to kind of improve the economy of what's called the breadbasket of India, the north. So people started using combine harvesters, increased machinery, and and this led to the ability to process grain in seconds really, really quickly. Of course, that meant wheat could be produced more economically and faster, leading to greater productivity. But there's a downside. Stubble was left, and this stubble means trouble. It can get stuck in machines. It's not good for animals, and it needs to be cleared from the land so that more crops can be grown and the land can be cleared. So what do the farmers do? They burn the stubble to get rid of it and get the land ready fast. And that's the root of the problem. All around Delhi, this stubble is burning, and in the states around Delhi of Punjab, the state of Haryana, and that's what's causing
And
this terrible.
life expectancy there has dropped.
Yes, to up to 7 years. There was an 18-year study done by the Energy Policy Institute at the University of Chicago, and they found that institute found that not only had life expectancy dropped, but the air pollution in the north is 3 times deadlier than the rest of the country. Now, just yesterday, 37 incoming flights were diverted into the national capital. Those are international flights, and 20 were delayed due to the low visibility and the air pollution. Now, this is really badly affecting India's economy and business. So there's a knock-on effect. Things are really, really bad, and you feel it. Journalists, everybody in Delhi really feels it, and there's been a huge backlash on Twitter as well.
And when you
With
say everybody in Delhi, that includes the politicians, the government, Delhi being the seat of government. I'm surprised then that the government is unable to, or seems to be unable to do much about it, apart from handing out masks for people to be able to breathe and to close down schools. Well, what's it doing in terms of policy to ensure that the pollution, the air quality is improved?
Well, there are a couple of things to say here. First of all, there was a backlash on Twitter because one of the ministers, rightly or wrongly, tweeted out that as a solution to the pollution, it was good to eat carrots and listen to music to soothe the mind. That was, some of these wealthy politicians, they sit in palatial farmhouses in their countryside constituencies or air-conditioned villas in the capital where they don't really feel anything. But they have brought in a policy which is coming into effect today, Monday, and it's called the odd even policy. And because another cause of the pollution is so many vehicles in Delhi. And so from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., um, license plates with even numbered last digits are allowed in on certain days, and license plates with odd numbers as a last digit are allowed in on
Yeah,
on alternate days.
that has
So
been
that's supposed
tried
to,
elsewhere in the world before, not
yes,
least, I remember in Lagos, in Nigeria in the
yes,
1970s. And what happened
yes,
there was that a lot of people went and bought two cars, one with an odd
yes,
number plate and one with an even number plate. Will that
yes,
solve
and
anything? Is the problem not, as you say, really with the farmers burning the stubble? And is the government unwilling to legislate against that or to minimize it or not?
yes. I mean, this policy is being brought in, and as you say, in Nigeria, people find ways around it, and in what's called a jugger economy, which prides itself on its inventiveness. You know, you only have to swap number plates, and you get around that one. Not that I'm advocating that, and Indians are bound to find a way. So I doubt that that's going to be very successful. But I want to quote to you the Beijing model, because that obviously you remember has been referred to, that city, Beijing, has been referred to as the most polluted capital or city in the world for many, many years. But what they did in Beijing in 2014 was that China declared a war on pollution. And just like India, China's divided up into many states, and each local government was sanctioned, and they would lose development funding and be penalized if targets to lower emissions and pollution were not met. And so this has resulted in the level of particles in the air, PM 2.5. Dropping by 54% in Beijing. So where there's a will, of course, there it's central government, very powerful, etc. It's a different kind of setup, as you know. Um, it can be done, but India, states warring with each other, states warring with central government, politics and money above all ruling the day. I think India has a very, very long way to go.
Up all night, Rani Singh there.